fog came in thick, rolling over the treetops like a slow-moving tide. It swallowed the world beyond the campsite, muffling sounds and distorting shapes. One moment, the night had been crisp and clear, stars blinking down from the heavens. The next, everything beyond the flickering firelight had dissolved into an eerie white void. Ryan shifted uncomfortably on the log. He pulled his jacket tighter around himself, staring into the swirling mist. "I don't like this," he muttered. Emma, perched beside him, chuckled. "You say that every time we camp." "No, this time's different." Maddie looked up from poking the fire with a stick. "He's not wrong. This fog, it's not normal. It came in too fast." Jake, ever the skeptic, rolled his eyes. "You guys are acting like this is Silent Hill or something. It's just weather. Relax." Ryan frowned, uneasy. "Yeah? Tell me when you've ever seen fog. This thick just appear out of nowhere." They fell silent, listening. The fire popped and crackled, sending glowing embers spiraling into the air. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted. A lonely, echoing sound that seemed swallowed before it could fully reach them. Then Maddie stiffened. "Guys, do you see that?" She was staring past the fire, into the fog. The others followed her gaze and froze. A figure stood just beyond the firelight. Tall. Too tall. His body was thin, almost stretched like something out of a distorted photograph. He didn't move. He simply stood there, motionless, his face obscured by the thick fog, except for one chilling detail. He was smiling, a wide frozen grin, too sharp, too broad. The expression of someone who had learned how to smile but had never quite understood what it meant. "Jesus Christ," Emma whispered. Is that a person?" Ryan's stomach knotted. He tried to convince himself it was some lost hiker, a camper from another site, someone playing a prank. "Hey," Jake called, "you okay, buddy? Need help?" The smiling man did not answer. "Maybe he's in trouble?" Maddie suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. Ryan swallowed hard. "Then why isn't he saying anything?" The smiling man did not move. Jake picked up a flashlight and pointed it into the fog. The beam cut through the haze, revealing only swirling mist where the figure had been. Gone, just like that. A long silence stretched between them. Then Emma stood abruptly. "Screw this. I say we pack up and leave. Now." Jake scoffed, though his bravado faltered. "Seriously? Just because some weirdo showed up? He's gone. Probably just some drunk guy messing around." "Yeah? Then where are his footsteps?" Maddie said. They all looked. Nothing. The damp earth showed no signs that anyone had stood there at all. Ryan felt something cold trickle down his spine. "I'm with Emma. We need to go." "It's late," Jake argued. "Driving out of here now is just as dangerous as staying. We'll leave in the morning." Nobody slept that night. The next morning dawn broke sluggishly. The fog still clung to the trees, but it had begun to thin, revealing patches of blue sky. The world felt different, hollowed out somehow. Ryan was the first to crawl out of his tent. His breath hung in the air. The fire had long since burned down to ash. Everything looked normal, until he saw the footprints. Not just one set, hundreds. They crisscrossed the campsite in chaotic, overlapping patterns. Some large, some small, some spaced like normal strides. Others placed so close together, they must have been tiptoeing, circling the tents, surrounding them as they slept. "Guys," Ryan's voice came out as a croak. "You need to see this." One by one, they emerged, bleary-eyed. And then they saw it too. Jake turned pale. "Oh, hell no." Emma clapped a hand over her mouth. Maddie clutched her arms around herself. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then Ryan pointed to something in the dirt. A fresh set of footprints leading away from the site. Not theirs. They followed them, reluctant, half dreading what they might find. The prints laid them a dozen yards into the trees, then stopped abruptly, as if the person, thing, had simply vanished. "We're leaving, now." Maddie's voice shook. Nobody argued. They packed in record time, shoving gear into bags, breaking down tents with frantic movements. By the time they reached the car, the fog had nearly burned away. The sun was bright, almost mocking, as if the night before had just been a bad dream. Except it wasn't. As they drove away, Ryan glanced into the woods one last time, and there, standing among the trees, was the smiling man, watching, still grinning. The forest had been peaceful that night. That's what Claire and Adam kept telling themselves. The fire had crackled warmly, a few logs popping as they settled into embers. The wind had barely rustled the leaves. Nothing had seemed out of the ordinary. And yet something had been. They just hadn't heard it. Now, as Claire scrolled through the footage on Adam's phone, her stomach twisted into knots. "This doesn't make any sense," she whispered. "We would have heard it. We would have..." Adam held up a hand to silence her. He rewound the clip, pressing play again. The footage was simple. Just a shot of their tent from the inside. The dim glow of their lantern barely illuminating the nylon walls. The microphone had picked up the steady sound of their breathing, the occasional shift of a sleeping bag. Then, somewhere around 2:37 a.m., the first scream tore through the silence. Claire flinched. Even through the tiny phone speaker, the sound was blood-curdling. It wasn't just a scream. It was agony. Raw, guttural, endless. And it had come from inside the tent. Adam's fingers tightened around the phone. "We should have woken up. We should have..." Claire's breath came in short gasps. She had been there. She had been right there, inside that very tent. Her body wrapped in her sleeping bag, safe beside Adam. She should have remembered screaming like that, but she didn't, and neither did he. The scream went on for 20, maybe 30 seconds, before warping into something else. A desperate, choking sob, a wet, ragged breath, then a final rattling gasp and silence. Claire's voice was barely audible. "That wasn't me." "It sounded like you," Adam said, but he looked sick as he said it. The video played on, but nothing else happened. The lantern flickered once, the shadows inside the tent shifting just slightly, like something had moved. Then, without warning, the recording cut to black. Adam checked the timestamp. It just stopped. Claire swallowed hard. "Check the other videos." They scrolled through the remaining footage. Clips of the campfire, a few joking selfies before bed, a recording of the woods just before sundown. Nothing unusual. Nothing sinister. Until the last video. Adam hesitated before pressing play. The camera had been outside this time, facing the tent. The fire had long since burned down to glowing embers, the night draped in stillness. Then, at 2:37 a.m., the tent trembled. Not from the wind, from inside. The material strained, bulging outward, as if something inside was pushing against it. A faint ripple, barely noticeable at first, then more forceful. The sides caved outward in unnatural spasms, as though unseen hands were clawing their way out. And then, the zipper. The video captured the slow, deliberate tug of the zipper coming down, inch by inch, though neither Claire nor Adam had moved. The tent flaps parted slightly, revealing nothing but pitch black beyond them. Then the video glitched, skipping a second or two, before the tent was still again. Claire's stomach lurched. "Turn it off." Adam obeyed, his face pale, his hands trembling. They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Something had been inside that tent. Something that had screamed in Claire's voice. Something that had tried to get out. Adam's voice was hoarse. "We're not staying another night," Claire nodded. "No arguments here." They packed their things in record time, shoving belongings into their backpacks without care. Every so often, Adam's eyes darted to the tent, as if expecting it to start moving again. The air felt heavier, the forest watching them with unseen eyes. When they finally peeled out of the campsite in their car, Claire glanced at the phone one last time. One new notification. Unknown video file detected. Her heart stopped. But Adam was already shaking his head, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I don't want to know." And neither did she. The aftermath. They reached home just before dawn, both too wired to sleep. Adam dumped their gear in the garage, refusing to even touch the tent. Claire sat at the kitchen table, staring at the phone. The notification still lingered on the screen, an invitation to something neither of them wanted to see. Adam took a deep breath. "We should delete it." Claire hesitated. "But what if it's important? What if it shows..." "Shows what? That something impossible happened?" Adam snapped. "Because I don't need proof to know that I'll never step into those woods again." She nodded slowly. He was right. Proof wouldn't change what they had felt, what they had almost experienced. And yet, curiosity clawed at her. The same dark part of the mind that forces people to peek between their fingers during a horror movie. She tapped the notification. The screen blinked black. A video started playing. At first there was nothing, just darkness. Then a breath, not theirs, not human. Wet, guttural, close. The screen remained black, but the audio continued. A slow wheezing inhale, followed by a shuddering exhale. It sounded like something massive trying to fit into their tent, trying to fold itself into a space too small for its body. The breath quickened, desperate. Then something scraped against the microphone. A low, guttural growl, followed by a choked sob, then the whisper, right against the speaker. "Let me out." The phone slipped from Claire's hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Adam stared at her, his face pale. "Delete it, now." She did. Every file, every backup. She even factory reset the phone for good measure. But deep down, Claire knew it wouldn't matter. Whatever had been inside the tent had never really left. And it was still screaming. Just in a place where they could no longer hear it.